What you're about to hear is not a legend from the Middle Ages or a story whispered by monks. It happened in a Mississippi prison less than 100 years ago. It begins with a discarded cloth, a death sentence, and a man no one expected to change. Our story begins not in a prison or a battlefield, but on a mountain. Mount Carmel, located in present-day northern Israel, rises high above the blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea. In ancient times, it was a place of silence and wind, of caves and solitude, a place where people could feel close to God. This mountain is best known in the Bible for a dramatic showdown that happened nearly 3,000 years ago. The prophet Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel to challenge the false prophets of a pagan god called Baal. Before a crowd, Elijah called upon the God of Israel to prove himself. And he did, by sending down fire from the sky to consume Elijah's offering. The people watching fell to the ground in fear and awe. They knew the God of Elijah was real. From that moment on, Mount Carmel became known as a holy mountain, a place of power, prayer, and divine presence. Many centuries later, in the 1100s, a group of Christian men, simple, devout, and seeking solitude, traveled to Mount Carmel. They were inspired by Elijah's life and prayer and his courage to stand up for the truth. These men built small homes among the caves and trees. They lived in silence. They fasted, they prayed, and most importantly, they built a chapel, not to honor Elijah, but to honor the Virgin Mary. They called her the Lady of the place. These men would become the Carmelites, one of the oldest religious orders in the church. But their peace didn't last. As the Crusades ended and political tensions rose in the Holy Land, it became too dangerous to stay. The Carmelites were forced to leave their mountain and flee to Europe. There, they struggled. They were seen as outsiders, strange men from the East wearing brown robes and claiming to follow a prophet from the Old Testament. Some even wanted the order shut down. One of their leaders, a man named Simon Stock, prayed earnestly for help. He asked the Virgin Mary to protect the order that had honored her since the beginning. He begged for a sign that she would not abandon them. According to a Carmelite tradition, the answer came on July 16, 1251. While Simon Stock was deep in prayer, the Virgin Mary appeared to him. She held out a brown garment, 2 small pieces of wool cloth connected by strings. "Receive, my beloved son, this scapular of your order. It is the special sign of my protection. Whoever dies wearing this scapular shall not suffer eternal fire." From that moment on, the brown scapular became a sacred symbol of trust. It was a sign of a relationship between the person wearing it and the Virgin Mary, who promised to help guide souls safely to her son, Jesus. To those who wore the scapular faithfully and lived a life of prayer and tried to follow Christ, Mary promised spiritual protection, especially at the hour of death. Over time, popes, saints, and ordinary Catholics around the world began wearing the scapular. It became part of Catholic tradition, not just in churches, but in homes, on battlefields, in hospital beds, and around the necks of believers who longed for hope. This small piece of cloth, born on a quiet mountain, would go on to touch the lives of millions. Fast forward to 1944, inside a prison in Mississippi. A man named Claude Newman, just 20 years old, had been sentenced to death for killing his step-grandfather. He wasn't a religious man, angry, closed off, waiting for the end. Then one night, he noticed something on the floor. It looked like trash, just 2 pieces of brown cloth held together by strings. A fellow inmate had torn it off in frustration and tossed it aside. Claude picked it up and tied it around his neck. He didn't know what it was, he just figured it couldn't hurt. That night, something strange happened. Claude later told a priest that he had seen a vision. A beautiful woman in glowing white stood before him. She told him, "If you would like me to be your mother, and you would be my child, send for a priest of the Catholic Church." Claude had never been Catholic. He didn't even know what a scapular was. But after that night, he begged to speak to a priest, and he got one. While waiting to be baptized, Claude spent time talking to other prisoners. One of them, an older inmate, told him a story, something he had once heard in a sermon. It was about a soldier in World War I. The story went like this. There was this soldier who wore a brown scapular under his uniform. One day, an explosion hit his unit. Everyone around him died. He was the only one left standing. Not even a scratch on him. He showed his scapular and said, She saved me. Claude listened closely. He didn't know if the story was true, but something about it stirred him. If Mary could protect a soldier in war, maybe she could protect a prisoner on death row. He never took the scapular off again. Claude was baptized a few days later. But that's not the end of the story. His peace, his joy, was so deep and unexpected that other prisoners noticed. Some of them asked questions. A few even began converting themselves. And Claude? He accepted his execution calmly. Before he died, he said, "I'm going to be with the lady I saw." He died smiling, still wearing the scapular that had once meant nothing to him, until it meant everything. The church teaches that the scapular isn't magic. It's not a free pass to heaven, but it is a sign, a reminder of Mary's care and a call to follow Jesus. Catholics who wear it are encouraged to pray, avoid sin, and trust in God. For Claude Newman, it became much more than that. It was the beginning of peace, purpose, and even joy on the edge of death. But not everyone sees it the same way. Skeptics argue that stories like Claude's may have natural explanations. They say his vision of a glowing woman might have been a hallucination, the result of intense fear, guilt, or isolation. After all, many prisoners on death row report strange dreams or experiences during those final days. The sudden peace he found, that could be the effect of finding meaning before death, something human beings crave when facing the unknown. His influence on other prisoners might have come from his calm demeanor, not from any supernatural event. And the story of the World War I soldier? There are no names, no records, and no military reports to verify it. Skeptics suggest it could just be a pious legend, a tale passed along over time to inspire faith, but not rooted in fact. As for the scapular itself, some view it as a placebo, a small object that gives people a sense of comfort, which can lead to real psychological or emotional change, even if there's no miracle involved. What do you believe? Can a piece of cloth really change a life? Or was it what the cloth stood for, a mother's care, a divine invitation, that made all the difference? You decide.